In this episode, I'm going to talk about the top 5 real estate photography mistakes that could ruin your business. We're going to start at the bottom at number 5, and we're going to work our way up to the top. Starting out at number 5 here at the bottom is undercharging for your work. Now, I get it when you're first starting out, or if you're hungry for gigs, either way, you want to be price competitive, thinking that will get you more work. But all that's going to do is attract the wrong type of clients. There's something in psychology known as the pricing bias or pricing effect. And that's where, by human nature, we equate things that cost more to being higher quality. Inversely, things that are lower cost tend to be related to things that have lower quality. That's why when you go to buy a bottle of wine, down on the very bottom shelf is your $2 Chuck, Boone's Farm, or Mad Dog, and at the very top is your very expensive Dom Perignon. So that pricing bias tells us that if somebody is pricing their stuff kind of high, whether it's going to be food, whether it's wine, or real estate photography, then that's going to equate to their quality. Now, there's always the argument that, well, everybody in my area is charging just $150 or whatever it is for photos. How can I compete with that? Well, that's easy. We all compete against McDonald's, right? So if you go to a restaurant, you want to get a good meal, you're not going to get a Happy Meal there and pay that same price. Same goes here. So what you do is, while you're doing some of your research, whatever you find the photo mills in your area doing, you know, the big ones that are out there advertising, we can do a whole bunch of stuff for you, HDR, and they advertise one thing on their website and then they do a bait and switch with some other real estate photographers that show up and actually do the work. Well, increase your price by at least 50%. You'd be surprised what you can charge for real estate photography. Right now, even in 2024, last year, the average for 10 to 25 photos in the US, the national average was $230, and in most cases, some of the large cities start at just even 10 photos over $300. So don't be afraid to start out a little on the high side if you are ready, because once again, you have to equate your quality then to what you are charging. And if you don't start out charging what can actually pay the bills, you won't stay with it. You need to have a sustainable business, and that means that you can charge enough for it. Besides, here, going into 2025, prices are extremely expensive everywhere. Everything's gone up in price. So everything's more expensive and everybody has been raising their rates. You've probably seen that with your utilities, with your grocery bill, with putting gas in your car. Everything has become more expensive. Real estate has become more expensive as well, and so realtors are getting a higher commission, thus they have higher budgets to spend. If someone isn't willing to pay you what you're worth, then you need to move on, because those aren't the realtors that you want. You've probably heard me talk about this before, in that only about 20% of all realtors will actually make it past 2 years. You don't want to go for the 80% that are just trying to cheap out on a Happy Meal or a $2 Chuck Boone's Farm bottle of wine. You want the ones that are in that 20% category that also know that paying for high quality work is a representation of them when they present themselves to potential sellers so that they can get their listings. Number 4, the mistake that I see a lot of real estate photographers make, especially when they first start out, is that they outsource too early. Now, you know I'm not a real big proponent of outsourcing, but it doesn't mean that outsourcing doesn't have a place in real estate photography. It has a place when you do it properly and at the right time. Because outsourcing really is a matter of overflow. It's a matter of knowing that, hey, I'm too busy. What can I do to keep up? Well, a couple things here to bear in mind. If you start out and you're just getting a few gigs here and there and you're not busy yet, now's the time to learn editing. The overflow portion of your outsourcing should be for the work that you aren't as concerned about having your edits done. Your reputation is going to stand on the quality of work that you provide. Along with that then, if you don't know how to edit, forget about the overflow thing. You won't be able to, without having editing skills, be able to provide fast turn and very custom work for your clients. So any editor will do about the same job as any editor. But you as a photographer, knowing as you're capturing footage on site, will know then how to edit that and what you had in mind while you were on site. You'll be able to produce then higher quality photos. And then There can come a time when you're so busy, people are just overjoyed with the work that you're doing, that you need to expand. Now, expansion does not equate to outsourcing. Expansion also can mean that you bring on another photographer and you teach them what you're doing. And they can also then do some of the editing work that you need to have done. Outsourcing by its very nature means that you will hit a plateau. But if you're just taking pictures and you're just a glorified shutter release and you're letting someone else do 75% of the work, that's an unsustainable business because you need to stand out. You need to be able to stand out from your competitors to show that your quality is higher and also that you have better customer service and support to be able to do custom edits. That especially goes when it comes to luxury real estate and also architectural and design real estate, where you have to work very closely with clients. In fact, this is the most often asked question in the Facebook groups for real estate photography. The most often asked question is, I need an editor. I see this in the videography group as well, and it's like I see it in the photography groups. And the question is, does anybody have a recommendation for an editor? Not happy with mine, or they didn't get good results, whatever it is. There's a constant turn. So if you're going to have a sustainable business, you need to have a sustainable editor. If you've never even met the person who is overseas, who's charging you $1.50, whatever it is, to edit one of your photos, then how do you know they're going to be there in the long run? Another thing too that happens is when you do outsourcing, especially with that type of approach, you don't know this person, you don't know if they're going to continue editing their photos. What often happens is a bit of a bait and switch, where immediately when you first get your first 1 or 2 gigs edited, you're just amazed by the results because the top editor at this outfit did your editing. But then as time goes on, they start passing that stuff off to just junior editors. You don't know who's really going to be editing your stuff, so you don't know the quality that you're going to get as time goes on. That's one reason why a lot of photographers end up changing their editors. So anyways, when it comes to outsourcing, be very cautious with it. Know who you're outsourcing to, but more importantly, know when to outsource. Don't outsource from the get-go. You need to build a reputation and you need to build a skill. You need to build that quality so you can build your clientele. Coming in at number 3 is something that is most critical, and it's getting clients too early, but also not getting stuck in analysis paralysis. Well, there's a balance between that. You don't want to be just good enough. You want to be better than your competitors. Think about it. Who would hire you compared to the photographers that they're using or that they have available to them in your area? If you don't stand out and you're not really good yet, then you're probably not going to get the gigs. And if you do and you're not ready and you're not fast enough, then you're also probably not going to be rehired. So there's something known as the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, this used to be mislabeled as climbing the top of Mount Stupid. It's not. It's really just reaching a peak where you think that you're better than what you are. That is another part of human psychology. We all, when we entered into photography, no matter what the field is, we looked at our photos and go, oh, that is fantastic. 10 years later, we look back at it and just go, oh, what was I thinking? Because we have this misperception that because we work so hard doing something, it must be really good. When in fact, though, leaving it up to a third party to look at, they'll have a different opinion. And if you show your stuff to your friends, by the way, they'll just tell you, of course, that you're doing a great job. But you really hand it off to a customer who isn't your friend. They're there for a transaction and some money and some marketing material to help them sell a house. They'll have a different opinion on that as well. And this goes to the heart and soul of doing real estate photography, and that's getting really good. You got to be good before you get out. And this is something, by the way, that I can help you with. And I did want to mention before we get on to the next 2 mistakes that I want to cover here is that if you are interested in improving your skills in learning real estate photography, I do have a variety of online courses. I've got links to that down in the description of this video, covering pro interiors, expert editing, exterior photography, videography, business and marketing for real estate. I also have some best-selling books on real estate photography. Once again, links to all that down in the description of this video. Coming in at number 2 is overpaying for gear. As photographers, we get into the megapixel count and all the bells and whistles of these cameras and thinking that we can buy a camera to do everything, do our fun, do our business, do everything with it, do video, you name it. You don't need to do that. There's a lot that you can buy in a camera for very little. In fact, I have a recent video that I just put out judging some of the best cameras that you can buy for real estate photography, and most of them cost about $1,000. So they also provide very high quality. Go to my website, for instance, and you'll see at nathancoolphoto.com, everything taken there was shot with a camera that cost about $1,000. So knowing how to keep yourself in budget, you can then spread your budget further to have multiple backup bodies, the lenses, everything that you need without breaking the bank. If you get too caught up in buying gear and needing new gear because new stuff came out, you're going to start eating into your budget. And then things will start slowing down. You really only need about a 24 megapixel camera. You get into this 45, 50 megapixel stuff, you're just going to take longer download times, bigger storage, the transfer times and editing between Lightroom Classic and Photoshop will be longer, just unnecessary stuff. Keep your budget in check. Don't overpay for gear, but don't skimp on gear. Make sure that you have the right gear that you need, and also to make sure that it's good enough quality, but not necessarily the latest with all the big bells and whistles. And finally, coming in here at number 1, the top mistake that I see real estate photographers make that could ruin your business, and it does to many over time, is to not continue learning. So just like every profession, you need to go back to basics sometimes. Doctors do this all the time. In other businesses, you go to conventions, you learn things. That doesn't mean you have to do that necessarily in real estate photography, but what you need to do is stay on top of things. That's one reason why I have this channel here, so that as things come out, I can keep you posted. But whether it's my channel, whatever it is, just even reading industry news, it's not that you need to go buy the latest gear because something came out, but you do need to stay on top of trends. You need to know where the market is heading. What are the most popular add-ons in your area? Keeping your ear to the rail to listen to your clients in the market to see what's changing. Also, a lot changes throughout every year when it comes to editing. Look at what's happened with just AI editing over the last couple years. If you stop learning and you get stuck in just one way of doing things, your competition will eventually race past you. This goes back to that reason of outsourcing, where I wanted to emphasize the fact that if you outsource, you're not the one who's going to be growing. You're going to rely on other people to grow your business. If you take the reins, if you take control of your editing, that's a big way to ensure that you are in control. You're the captain of your ship, running your real estate photography business, knowing the basic trends and the new trends that come out. And with that, don't be afraid to go out and shoot other things besides real estate photography. That's one way of expanding. Breaking free of just being inside of a house and taking a lot of stuff. Get out in nature, take other types of photos, because the more you work on photography in general, the better you'll be as a photographer overall.